Oh, Superman, where are you now? When everything's gone wrong somehow, men of steel, these men of power, I'm losing control by the hour. This is the time. This is the place. So we look for the future, but there's not much love to go around. Tell me why this is the land of confusion. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, giving winter a kick in the butt and moving on into spring. I feel it coming.
You do, huh?
I do.
Well, spring
is in the air.
I'll tell you, to me, spring is not in the air until I smell two things outside.
That's the leather of a baseball.
Okay, three things.
And lilacs or what?
Baseball, but the other two things kind of make me think about baseball.
Yeah.
One is I need to smell a barbecue.
Ooh. Yeah.
I need to smell some chicken wings or burgers or steak. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is freshly mowed grass.
Ooh,
as real men, we don't cut the lawn, we don't cut the grass, we mow the lawn.
That's right.
Okay, so when I hear that lawnmower going, the train a coming. I was thinking of a Merle Haggard song. When I hear that, and I can smell the sweet scent of somebody having dinner on the grill. Oof. And none of this gas BS, charcoal only.
That's it.
Okay?
I'm telling you.
Yeah, none of this propane stuff that, smells like it was cooked on a frying pan at Booger King. That's when I know spring is coming. And yes, I mean, the baseball, of course. The thing is, I have no idea who sings the Superman song. Was it called Man of Steel? I saw that movie.
No, that's not what it's called, no.
Who sings a song about Superman? Huh.
Our Lady Peace, but that's a different one. That's called Superman's Dead. That's not that one.
I went to that church one time.
Yes.
Our Lady of Peace?
Yes.
That's not who it is, though? Okay.
No, they did not put out that album.
All right, Jay. I mean, I know this is show 153.
Something like that, yeah.
And what am I at, 14 and 3/4 now? And I'm not going to expand on that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to expand on that today.
Genesis, Land of Confusion.
Genesis.
Yes.
I know those guys. Don't tell me there's somebody else in there I don't know. Is Peter Gabriel in that band?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know him too. Yeah. So that's I get another quarter of a point there because I knew one of the guys that was in there.
My word.
And Phil Collins, I can name a bunch of his songs.
Yeah, but
maybe
I
can't
name any of his Genesis songs.
Well, I don't know which is which though.
Okay.
Because I think of Phil Collins, I think of WrestleMania 1.
Yeah.
The theme song was written by Phil. Easy Lover.
Oh yeah.
By Phil Collins.
And Phil Billy.
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
So that was the theme
song. I love that song.
When WrestleMania 1 had started, because that was a closed circuit. That was before pay-per-view.
Yeah.
You had to watch that at like a movie theater. Okay, so that was the words to Easy Lover weren't there.
No.
But the theme song was.
I love that with the drum fills.
Yes, and who sang the national anthem at the first WrestleMania? Do you know that? He didn't exactly sound like Robert Goulet, okay, but I got the story on it later from a Legends Roundtable thing.
Yeah, let's see who would have sang that at the national anthem at the WrestleMania 1. Hopefully, it wasn't the Iron Sheik.
No, but this guy interviewed the Iron Sheik a million times.
Yeah. Mean Gene?
Mean Gene really? Okerlund. Yep, yo, Gene Mean. You intelligent Jew. You're an intelligent Jew here in America.
Oh, my God.
I am Jabroni. You Jabroni. I've been following his tweets, and it's just great. I love it.
He's something else.
I've liked him. I've responded. It's just hilarious. Oh, it's good. Yo, Gene Mean. So, so here's the thing. Jay, I got a question for you.
Yes.
We have a rash in this country, and we'll get to our subject in a minute. But
do they have a cream for it?
No, not for this.
Okay.
I was reading. I don't know why I'm fascinated by mental health.
Yes.
Because part of it is, I think, a lot of it's hooey. I don't think all of it is, but I've been reading up lately on attention deficit disorder.
What?
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Yes.
An ADHD, whatever that is.
It's when you're hyperactive on top of it.
Okay.
Yes.
All of the symptoms of it. Okay, let me back up a second. We're told 8 different things by doctors.
Yes.
It's a chemical problem in your brain. Although doctors will give you medication in 5 minutes, they didn't do much research. So, if I walked into a doctor's office, Jay, and I said, "You know what? I think I'm a diabetic. Why don't you give me some insulin?" No doctor's going to write you a prescription for insulin. No. They're going to run a bunch of, you're going to do blood tests on you. They're going to do, family history, blah, 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 blah. If I walked in and said, my kid can't sit still.
Yeah.
Prescription for some Amarol or whatever it is just goes right out, and there's no age limit or anything on it whatsoever. Yeah. Kids are on this stuff for years. I've been reading what is considered the symptoms of this. And Jay, not only do I have every one of them, 90% of the people I know probably fall into this category. Yeah. So at first, the one that really hit me was, do they get distracted easily? And their definition of this, I got this from a couple different, this WebMD source, and the Mayo Clinic has a page on it, a few other things. And does your kid get bored or reading uninteresting stuff? That was their exact words. And I went, Not only does your kid do it, but
yeah.
You give me a Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare. Okay, in 30 seconds, when I was a kid, I remember reading this when I was a kid. After 30 seconds, I was thinking about Susie or Gertrude or whatever. I had very little distractions as a kid. I had a radio in my room, a dial one. Okay, no TV until I bought one with my lawn mowing money. And my dad would, if I didn't get on the honor roll, he would go up to the cable with his hedge clippers and threaten to snip it on that was his big thing. It was that or no baseball.
Right.
I was going to live without TV. But I didn't have a phone. I think I had a phone in my room later, but I didn't have an iPad. All the kids, all they do is I have all these distractions. So but my mind wandered. Okay. Do you sit when you sit? So, put Rocky V on marathon, and within a minute of it, I'm thinking of my wife in her bathing suit on the beach. I have no interest in what I'm seeing. You give me a history book? Well, I could read that all night long.
Right.
So when a kid thinks something is or maybe it's too hard or too, why is the response to drug them?
Well,
does your kid tap their foot when they're sitting down? Yeah, I do it all the time.
I do too. I've always got music going through my head, and I'm tapping my fingers or tapping my feet. And
should nothing be going on in my head?
Well, I can think of a few people like that, but that's not us.
I pace a lot, and my wife always yells. She's getting ready for something, and I'm pacing in the living room. And so, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah,
I've been doing that since I was. Nobody thought anything of it. Here's the thing. If you got a kid that is I don't like to use the medical. I don't like to use hyperactive because it's just, I hate labeling people. You know what you do? You do what my mom did with me. She would bodily remove me from the house, throw me outside, especially in the summer, and say, go somewhere, and you know what time your father gets home for dinner. You got to watch. Be home then. And I'd go ride my bikes. I go down and play baseball at the park. I would do whatever. I'd go bike to the crystal pool. I'd do anything. I would get it all out of me.
Yes.
Okay. So to give me Amarol and just have me sit there, to the world.
Adderall. That's what it's called.
What's Amarol? That's what you get in your car with, right? Amarol.
Or is that Amsoil?
No, it's the. Is that the foot fungus thing?
What?
Yeah. Tough Actin Amarol?
That's Tinactin.
Tinactin, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm confused.
You nailed it.
Anyhow.
Yes.
So what is this thing? If your kid's struggling, when did it become take your kid to the doctor?
Well,
Why?
I think schools push for it a lot. I think that if they can classify somebody as special ed because they're on some sort of medicine, they get more money.
Yeah, they certainly do. The expectations are lowered.
Yeah,
but is it also? I mean, I also put. I'm not a parent, so it's easy for me to. I know you are, but I mean, you can't chemically babysit your kids. Okay,
no.
so is it? Hey, they're hyperactive. I don't want to deal with it. I'll give them a pill, and I can go watch my Netflix show and not be bothered. I mean, is there is there a little bit of that going on too?
There could be, a little bit of absentee parenting going on. Yeah,
yeah. I'm just disturbed by. Especially kids. I don't like labels being put on kids.
Right.
That just really bugs me.
I think sometimes, too, we're just looking for a quick fix. We don't want to put in the work.
Well, it's like taking a diet pill.
Right.
Instead of eating a salad twice a year, somebody just, I'll take my Metabolife. All that is speed on a lower dosage. And so, I mean, but you don't want to put in the work. You don't want to change your lifestyle. You don't want to change your behavior. You don't want to quit drinking or whatever's causing it. Like you didn't get fat overnight. Okay. Believe me, I know. So, it's just, I don't know, something to think. But I think I'm a special. I think had this stuff been around when I was, if I were a kid today, I think I'd have an IV and a nurse following me all day to make sure I got my what's the other thing that starts with an R? What's that?
Ritalin.
Ritalin.
Yes.
I think I'd be hooked up with one of those machines that beep, my heartbeat and stuff. I think I'd be hooked up with it. I'm just so glad I'm not a kid today.
Yes.
That's all I can say. I do feel bad for parents sometimes too. So.
Yeah.
But I'm just a big believer in letting kids be kids and not. And kids are all different. What is this thing about kids all being the same?
It's like cities.
Yeah, but I mean, your kid's abnormal. You know what? That's good. It's good to get an A instead of a C.
Yes.
That's abnormal.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear about places that are taking away, what is it, Seattle that just voted on taking away the
valedictorians or whatever, right?
The gifted program.
Oh,
because it wasn't equitable.
They needed more chocolate chips in that vanilla shake?
I don't know. We're doomed. Oh, well.
Anyhow, Jay, on to bigger and better things. Just so you know, if my mind starts wandering during this, okay? If I look like I'm not paying attention, just know that I have a severe case of ADD. And also, I took my bipolar test again.
Yeah.
I'm extremely bipolar.
Really?
Whatever that means, I don't know. The questions were so general.
I haven't been to either poll. I don't know.
Yeah. 90% of the people I know probably qualify.
Yeah.
Have you felt down once or twice in the last 2 weeks? Sure. Every time I get my car payment bill, I'm down for 15 minutes while I write that check. Yeah, I'm pissed off. What does that mean? Am I manic then?
I don't know. Have you read books by Will Steger and Amundsen?
Oh,
I
you listen to any Allman Brothers? I mean, there's things that could depress anybody.
You ever
okay,
seen a Gladiator movie?
Yeah. Ever been in a men's locker room?
Ever been in a Turkish prison?
Oh God! Hey, don't call me Shirley. There's pop culture things I know. Okay, if Leslie Nielsen's in it, I'm pretty up on it. Okay. All right, Jay.
Yes.
Back to business. We only joke around so much on this program.
That's right.
Back to business. In researching what we're talking about here, I am just astounded. I'm just astounded. And I'm getting very animated here on the radio, but I'm astounded by, how do we put this? Basically, our topic tonight is government owning land and the history and consequences of that.
Yes.
With a little bit of a local twist on it, too.
Absolutely. I mean, because it affects localities,
That's often overlooked, as it always is.
Right. You've got the townships and the cities and the, areas that where government owns land. And there's oftentimes battles between the government entities that, want to have jurisdiction over that land.
Yeah. But here comes my question first off,
Yes.
Jay. Because I just give a little background here. 81% of the state of Nevada is owned by the federal government.
Yes, it is.
Now, here we have a state, okay? They are a state.
Yep.
Recognized by our Constitution with 9th and 10th Amendments. Amendment powers. Mm-hmm. How can they be considered a state if 4/5 of them are owned by the federal government? How can they be an independent state?
Well, that's a good question.
They can't be. I was shocked to learn that 45% of California is owned by the federal government. 45%. Now, granted, that's a big state, but
right. But still, that's almost half of the state.
And you're talking a state with, and they got everything in California, from national forests to fault lines.
Oh, you mean geography?
Oh yeah, they got everything too. Just look on the street corner and you'll see everything.
That's true.
It's Ace Ventura, in human beings and animals.
Yes.
Okay, but Alaska is a place where
government owns a ton of North Alaska.
Not to mention the natural resources that come with it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a time, Jay, and I'm going way back to the 1800s, mm-hmm. when the United States was the manifest destiny time, where we were expanding west,
right?
Where the government wanted out of the land business.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a place where you go and lose your identity and start over and ranch some cattle or grow crops or go for gold or whatever you were going to do.
They incentivized people to move west.
Yeah, and the Homestead Act, of course, which followed, which had some flaws in it, but the intent, 160 acres was a little bit of a weird number that they picked, but
yes,
but the intent was not to sell this at the highest price, not to control what went on it. Mm-hmm. It was to get this into private hands. Let's settle these states. Let's allow people the freedom if they want to move. They created roads and things like that, and railroads. Most of them were private at that time, to incentivize that moving west. Around the turn of the century, though, we took a detour.
Yes.
We took a big detour from that, both by executive action and action by Congress.
Right.
And we really are still in that mode. We're still in this acquisition mode. The government has been in that now for 120 some odd years. Mm-hmm. They have been in this acquisition mode. Not just the federal government either, but states for sure. Even local governments are sometimes in acquisition modes.
Yeah, that's true.
So what changed? What has changed about why did that happen? Why all of it? And look, again, I want to preface something by saying I don't want to tear down every tree or drain every lake or fish the hell out of every lake or knock down the Mount Rushmore and
mm-hmm.
turn that into high density housing. It's not what I'm advocating. But there has to be a counterbalance between preserving something for a reason, mm-hmm. being environmentally conscious, and using resources that we use every day. We use all these resources.
Right.
So what changed? What happened?
Well, the progressives came and took over, and they believe the government has the answer for everything. And you had a number of policies that came out in between 1900 under Teddy Roosevelt through Woodrow Wilson and, into FDR. And it hasn't slowed down,
So again, not everything that they did was terrible, but anytime you open that up, abuses follow. Mm-hmm. I mean, people talk about the Antiquities Act of 1906. Well, we know what the intent with that was. Look at the things President Obama set aside with that.
Yeah.
26 times he used that. Okay? Ronald Reagan and George Bush Sr. combined used it 0.
Wow.
Okay, so you can see Donald Trump has used it 0.
Right.
In fact, he reversed some of President Obama's, using of that.
Right.
So, but it has caused, and we've had presidents not use it. We've had presidents like President Trump, President William Howard Taft, who reversed quite a bit of what President Roosevelt did, which helped lead to a rift between the two of them. But Taft's, argument was we need an act of Congress. You can't just declare something. You have to follow the law.
Right.
Progressives think you don't have to do that.
Absolutely.
If the ends justify the means, then it really doesn't matter. But it's left us with, and look, love Yellowstone. I've never been to the Grand Canyon, but it's on my bucket list.
Yeah.
I do believe that some of these things are good to be kept. However, you don't need to keep 5 million acres around it, off limits.
Right.
There's certain things you just don't have to do. And just because you have a forest doesn't mean somebody shouldn't be able to build a house in it, or somebody can't build a cabin or fish on a lake. And all of these things, like we said, have a local twist to them, because there is a war going on against rural America.
Yes.
Okay, and rural Minnesota, and we see the divide in Minnesota very strong. It wasn't always like that. I mean, it's not so much, not as, when it comes to a lot of these issues, I mean, mining is always the thing that sort of people talk about the most, where there is a rural and urban divide. It's not necessarily down party lines, but it brings me back to who owns these minerals. I mean, who decides that you can't mine copper and you can, or we can only do it here and we can't do it here? I mean, to me, the death of these small towns and death of these small big towns, which I like to call them, is making it so they can't grow, they can't have an industry, they can't have an identity, and taking that away. And one of the ways that's happening is government owning land.
Yes.
And saying, you can't live here, you can't fish here, you can't hunt here, you can't mine here, you can't, the only way you can come here is through a regional trail on your bike, or on your scooter store, or on your hover-round, or on your rented bicycle from Itasca County that we can leave at. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's very scary to think. I don't think the intent in the Constitution was ever to amass as much land as possible.
Right.
It's been polluted by activist judges, activist presidents, and there's real consequences for these cities. There's real consequences for job opportunities for their citizens.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is even in Minnesota, you'd be surprised. The state and federal government combined owned 24% of the land in Minnesota.
Wow.
So if I walk 20 feet, okay, let me think of my Cooper math. 1 out of 4, right? Yeah. 5 of those feet are owned by government. That's how big the problem is here in Minnesota. And again, am I for tearing down every tree and draining every lake? No. Of course not. But where is the balance between, I'm an outdoorsy guy and you are too, where's the balance between using our natural resources, protecting some things, and yet allowing capitalism to do what capitalism does?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times we get, as government, inserted into areas where we really shouldn't, where
they do that? I didn't know they did that.
Out. But, like I said, we've got all these progressives that feel like they need to be involved in every facet of our lives. And so that isn't just what happens at home when we close the door behind us, but it is also what happens out in the open spaces and in how our world is structured and regulated. So,
well, just to give you an idea of how crazy this has gotten, President Obama declared 5,000 square miles of the ocean to be set aside for Northeast Canyons and Seamount Marine National Monument.
Huh.
Now, the absurd claim that the United States owns the ocean is enough to be crazy. But what he's basically saying is here's an area where we're in charge. Okay?
Yes.
And nobody else is.
Yeah.
And he did that in the wee hours of his presidency. In fact, it was the day before he left office, I believe.
Yeah.
But that's how ridiculous it's gotten. That you can declare the ocean. What was going to happen there, I don't know. A national monument. I mean, I know this is funny, but I mean, this is serious. I mean, I'm laughing too.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's cash for catfish, I guess.
Yeah. Well, there's been some big cases in Utah is another state.
Yes.
Where
it's a huge one.
Where I want to say maybe 60% ish of the land is owned by the federal, and who knows how much the state owns too. I mean, Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, all their descendants, probably half the state. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, there are people out there that have been fighting. The legislature's been fighting the federal government. Citizens have been fighting the federal government. Cities have been fighting the federal government. It's gone on for decades. It has gone on since the mid-'90s when President Clinton declared, I can't remember what it was, but he declared something a national monument or something and made a ridiculous amount of acres that were off limits to anything. They were off limits to fresh air.
Yeah.
And they've been fighting and fighting and fighting for a sovereign state to control their own land use. I mean, we talk about land use a lot, and that being controlled by the Met Council or the county or whoever.
Right.
And cities fighting that and having to fight for it to even have any say in what goes on. Man, you got a monster in the federal government trying to fight them off. Once they get their hands on something, we all know they're not going to let it go.
No.
So, 100 years from now, is 81% of Nevada still going to be owned by the federal government?
Well.
Remember they wanted to dump nuclear waste there or something?
Yes. They got no reason to give it up at this time, so why would they?
Couldn't we dump that in North Korea or something? Gee, what the heck? Dump it in a state?
Yes.
Dump it over in Moscow? I don't know. It's just, I'll tell you what. Here's a case that intrigues me, Jay.
Yes.
Now we'll bring this a little more local here to Minnesota in a minute, but I was intrigued by this in Illinois. The governor, now this tells you what the intent of this really is. Governor Bruce Rauner announced that the state had acquired 2,629 acres of property in LaSalle County, I don't know where that is, to protect natural resources and expand recreation opportunities, tourism, and economic development near Starved Rock and Mathewson State Parks. Economic development? So what does that mean? They're going to take the land and they're going to put affordable housing on it, or what would the economic opportunity be?
Stick a Walmart on it?
Well,
I don't know. Yeah, well, they're not going to start mining or anything like that. I mean,
they don't mean that economic opportunity.
No.
But I was intrigued by this comment. I am on the Department of Natural Resources page on Illinois.gov, by the way.
Okay.
If you want to follow this, just put in starved rock, and it will take you right to the article.
Okay.
$11 million of taxpayer money was used to purchase this, by the way. And keep in mind, now that has to be maintained. It's off the tax rolls. I mean, remember, that's a fraction of the cost when you really think about it. And it is through the state's open land trust, which was established to acquire property for conservation and recreational purposes. So they have an entire trust to go out. Their mission is to go out and acquire property. I mean, they're telling you, we are going after property and taking it.
Yep.
And we know what, like, the UN and people like that, we know how they feel about land.
Right.
And a lot of this predates that. But, it's just amazing how they just blanketly state that.
Mm-hmm.
And what do they need to purchase this for? It's already a state park. I mean, what's the rationale to expand it? Recreational opportunities? Are there enough baseball diamonds or enough? I mean,
frisbee golf.
Yeah. Well, they got to make it an inclusive state park.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's got to be, extra pickleball courts. We got to tear up hockey rinks because he plays hockey.
Well,
it's not diverse enough.
Right.
So it's that kind of stuff. But I mean, we've run into it here in Minnesota too. I mean, we've run into these places that have fought against. The DNR really controls a lot of the area in Minnesota.
Yes, they do.
They control so much of it. And again, they're in an acquisition mode, running around taking property or buying property. Meeker County, this is about 2 years ago, but they turned down a sale of land by a 3-2 vote. Where the DNR was going to purchase 150 acres for a wildlife management area. Now that sounds harmless, Jay.
Right.
It sounds harmless, but I got a bright. It's very rare that I'm impressed by what somebody says on that is serving on a county board. Usually, I don't think too highly of them. But I want you to listen to what this Meeker County Commissioner, Mike Hausman, who was, and also Commissioner Brian Larson, I don't have him quoted here. I'm looking at the DuluthNewsTribune.com. Wonder how it made Duluth's newspaper, but not Meeker County's. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. So, listen to what he said here. To me, this is an issue of economic development. Once we take those lands and allow the DNR to purchase them, they are forever owned by the government, and there is no opportunity in the foreseeable future for these lands to be used for any other purpose other than what the DNR would choose. So, I mean, what they're basically saying is that the DNR runs this land, okay, the DNR gets 100% to decide what goes there.
Okay.
And he's right. I mean, that land, again, off the tax rolls, and it's on the government dole forever. Forever and ever and ever, they own it.
Yep.
And they're going to decide if a snowmobile trail wants to go, hey, it's their land. They want to put that regional trail through there, they can do it.
Yeah.
And there's not a lack. It's not like Meeker County lacks places to. My microphone just hit me in the face. Lacks places to go hunt or fish. Mm-hmm. I mean, nothing outside the 7-county metro in Minnesota needs wildlife or recreational promotion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so they turned down this sale. I mean, which was an extreme rarity. You don't see that too often. So I'm almost encouraged. I'm almost encouraged by it.
Yeah, well.
I mean,
if you feel like there's some sort of forward motion here, on it, I don't know. It doesn't sound very encouraging at the moment. But
well, yeah, I mean, it's one sale turned down.
Yeah.
Can't get too excited. I mean, but I'll tell you what, there's some other examples. Back, there was a case in Anoka County that they rejected a land sale. Rhonda Shivaraja actually was the person who's a friend of ours, was the person who led the fight to expand this wildlife management area, the opposition to it, and it did not pass back then. And there were a lot of reasons for it, but I think ultimately it was like, look, once this land's gone, and in fact the DNR tried to go around Anoka County by getting the legislature to say that they couldn't have a stake in it. So,
yeah,
which is typical.
It is.
So, but kudos to them for not letting. I mean, and here's the thing: this isn't a private transaction. It's not two people making a contract here.
Right.
It's government saying, "I want your land," and putting pressure on people to sell, which happens.
Yes.
And so, so on and so forth. Here's another interesting case. Where is Lac Qui Parle?
Lac Qui Parle.
Huh?
It's the lake who talks in French. Yes.
Okay.
Lac Qui Parle.
Way in western Minnesota. We're
Yes.
Dawson, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know.
We'll look it up for you.
Doesn't matter. But board members also rejected the DNR taking over 80 acres of property. Board members said that the property tax base already includes too much public land. And that's another thing, too. It's another thing to talk about. When land comes off the public tax rolls, that is basically a guaranteed property tax increase.
Yeah.
And everybody else living in that county.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Because you're taking thousands of acres off of tax rolls.
Yes.
And it's all classified differently. Agricultural land
Yes.
and so on and so forth. Minnesota has 55 property tax classifications.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. In your civics class, there's 4. Mm-hmm. In Minnesota, there's 55. So
typical.
Yeah. So, but another case where something got turned down. There's already enough public land. We don't need any more. There's no need for this, and so we've seen some pushback.
Yeah.
But I think again, local implications, Jay, property tax increases, loss of business opportunities, loss of housing space, loss of anything except what government would do to it.
Right.
Lakeshore property has this issue as well of government not willing to sell land, not willing. I mean, here's the thing. Putting a cabin on a lake is not detrimental to the environment around there.
No, but they've got so many laws against it. I mean, you can't cut down trees within so many feet of the lake. You can't have the cabin within so many feet of the lake. I mean,
even if it doesn't have a basement.
Many rules.
Right, and you can't do anything without your building permits. But your permits, there was a time somebody cut a tree down and built their own cabin. We're a long way away from that. I mean, we couldn't be further away from it.
Yeah.
Impossible. But I mean, you see this too with things like fishing, where the DNR will come into some lake and say, well, you can't fish for this, you can't keep this, you can't, you got to throw back this. We're going to change the limits on this. They do it lake by lake.
Right.
With just no regard to the people who own resorts, people who own restaurants, the people who own liquor stores, strip clubs, whatever. I mean, I'm kidding. There's just no regard for that. And unfortunately, I still see the wrong trend going. I still see the trend being the acquisition mode rather than the we can't trust people to do with their own stuff. We can't.
Of course not. Government has to oversee that. That's the only way that we do what we're supposed to do. Because we're dumb.
Well, I do hate stupid people. Yeah. But I mean, what is dumb? I mean, what are they preventing from happening?
Well, I mean, there's a number of things that obviously, if you're from a certain political persuasion, you are against the concept of urban sprawl, but not in its true sense, where it's like out of control growth and we're stripping the land of everything. They don't want to see suburban areas, rural areas grow at all. And in Minnesota, there's such a divide where if you're in a township, there are certain things that you just cannot do. You can't have anything that's beyond a certain density. There's all that kind of stuff. They want to take those people and drive them back towards the urban centers because then it's a lot easier to control their movements. And when you have...
That's right, get them in transit.
Right. Exactly. You have approved routes and that kind of stuff. And you want people to be urban, you don't want these rural places popping up, or these places out in the townships where maybe you start to have a bunch of single family homes in these developments.
Oh, you can't have that.
No, you can't have that. So,
somebody might even think independently.
Right? It's dangerous. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, looking at Lac Qui Parle County, it's like it's a little closer to Watertown than it is to Wilmer.
Okay.
So it's right not in the middle. It's a little further towards Watertown. But
so a couple hours west of here.
Yeah.
So out there fighting it out there. But I mean, Jay, we're community solutions here, of course. We don't just identify problems and complain about them.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'd be called the Ex-Wives Show. But here's the thing. What are like some small steps? How do we, other than fighting a specific sale or something like that, the tide has to be turned on this.
Yes.
We have to somehow get land back into the hands of private citizens and redefine, who's in charge of what. I mean, part of the problem with like drilling for oil in Alaska is the federal government owns the land. Nothing can happen without the federal government letting it happen. I don't know how that happened.
They control ranching, they control hunting, they control fishing.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
I mean, who bought it?
I don't.
We bought Alaska from the Russians, under Alexander II. Okay, I mean, who declared that it was a territory for a long time? But to me, it's a sovereign state,
right?
And for the federal government to own a majority of the land there is, I would call it at minimum constitutionally questionable. So we're
absolutely.
So I mean, how do you even peel? Where do you begin to peel that back? How do we get 24% here. How do we get it down to 23.7? I mean, how do we just start peeling that back?
Well, that's a great question, and
I only ask great questions unless I ask bad ones.
I think the courts, will have to end up getting involved. I mean,
they've gotten involved plenty of times.
I mean, there are laws around, like if a government entity wants to sell land that they're holding on to, but there's really nothing other than the Constitution that kind of enumerates powers for an individual or a city, county, state that wants to get land back from like the federal government or something like that.
Well,
and so
how about an individual? Why can't an individual do that? The city would have to come and rezone, but
right.
I mean, say I have a farm, okay, and I like some of the land next to me, and it's owned by whoever,
right?
State, federal, county, park district, I don't know who the hell's in charge of it, water management board, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a way? How would that go about? I mean, do we need a legislature change allowing? How would we encourage that to go differently? Because I feel like we're sort of just at the mercy of, you've got eminent domain, you've got an unfunded war chest that the government can use, you got a court system that the government appoints. Right. So, I mean, the likelihood that they're going to act independently, I think, is not high, especially here in Minnesota. Some of them run out of the Supreme Court. So, I mean, I don't even know where to start of getting land and resources and just our private property rights, which so many of them we've signed away. I mean, let me put it this way: when people talk about private property rights, too many times they concentrate on how high your shed can be or something. You take something like water.
Yes.
The most basic thing anybody needs. And you look at who's in charge of water around here. Yes. And it is not in private hands one drop.
Oh, no, not at all. And they try to keep you from getting your hands on naturally occurring water.
Exactly. If you had a spring in your backyard, they'd come in and fence it off. And I mean, things like electricity. I mean, they allow monopolies to form.
Right.
And your basic kind of things. Which are again at the mercy of this big thing called government. So I mean, maybe I'm crazy. Usually we have the answers here, but I mean, to reverse this trend, does it start with an act of the legislature that, of course, will get reviewed by the courts and blah blah blah? And then how does that get implemented?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got to have a change at
an attitude, dude.
An attitude change where we've got these people. I know I said this before. I sound like a broken record, but you've got progressives that want government in control of everything so that they can tell everybody what the best thing is for them. And that's not the way that we have to do this. We need people in government who believe that the individual has rights, is intelligent, can figure out how to do things for themselves without government telling them what to do and how to do it. And so part of that is by bringing these people in, that they change the laws to loosen these things, so and get out of the real estate business a little bit, start selling some of those lands back or giving them back maybe is better. Just here you go. I mean, I guess
let's get a program together like they did in the 1800s.
Right.
To, and again, it's up to locals to do the zoning and do that kind of stuff, comprehensive planning. Mm-hmm. So they're not up to some knucklehead in St. Paul to comprehensive plan for Beltrami County.
Right.
But I mean, here's another question. Why is it that rural Minnesota, the Coalition of Greater Minnesota or something, this ought to be an issue they're championing?
Right.
These regional Mado governments ought to be furious that they're being strangled. Mm-hmm. But I don't see this as a priority with them. I don't see this as something that I don't see any bills from the legislatures up in Cook County to try to take everybody talks about local control until they're in charge. So, I mean, they're going to have to band together in this, work with the townships and the other cities and the other counties, and to a point where they can't be ignored. I mean, you're talking northern Minnesota. I mean, you're talking over half the counties in the state.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go from the cities north.
Right.
So, I mean, and can't you come to some I mean, I could sit in a room with almost anybody and come to a reasonable agreement, I think.
Yeah.
Forget the whack jobs. Right. I could come in there with, look, I want the lake to be preserved. I don't want X amount of trees to be planted or kept. But we can't the people are going to expand. I mean, that's the thing. It's the natural thing to happen.
Yes.
And we can't strangle that, and we're systematically doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried as hell for rural America. I mean, I'm worried about the Electoral College going away. I'm worried about the EPA and their legislating as and the DNR legislating when they shouldn't be. I mean, they're up against it, and I don't see local governments there sounding the alarm bells. It's kind of issue to issue, and it's not really.
Yeah, it's not a coherent policy.
I can't understand it, because if I were from a small town up there, which you are, and I'm not, but if that were my home or where my job was or something like that.
Yeah.
Boy, I would be all over this like, flies on dog crap. That's what I would be. But I'll tell you what, there's some sites out there to look up land use. There's the big map of where you can see where I think Connecticut is the state where or Rhode Island might be the state where they own the least amount.
Wow.
But it's like, even if somebody wants to live in like a mountain, I mean, who's... why should they be stopped, I guess, is my question. They want to live there and hunt bear or something. I mean, I don't know. I think that this is just another case where the 9th and 10th Amendments, once again, are not being followed. They're never followed.
Yeah.
But in here, a sovereign state, how can a state be sovereign? I mean, think about it like this, Dave.
Yes.
Let's say we went and colonized 81% of Japan.
Okay.
Okay. Is Japan an independent country anymore?
Well, define independent. Technically, yeah, I suppose. But
81% of their land is not in their hands, or their citizens' hands, or anything. Subject to what we want.
Oh boy!
So that's Nevada,
right?
I mean, if you just want to be blunt about it, that's Nevada. There's other states out there too: Idaho, Utah, Montana, New Mexico, Alaska, even California, Texas. There's a lot. I mean, you talk about a growing state, and yet still, I mean, there's a lot of areas in Texas that are off limits. And you just wonder, with natural resources and so on, if the federal government and the state government would get the hell out of the way, what could be possible. I mean, and look, and again, I am a guy who is a good steward of my environment. I think I'm very environmentally conscious.
Yeah.
I don't believe necessarily in all the climate change hysteria, but that doesn't mean you should litter. No. Doesn't mean you shouldn't recycle.
Right.
It doesn't mean you should, dump stuff in lakes. I don't do stuff like that. But we do have resources for a reason. And some resources are reusable. And we got to strike a balance between the two and not take some extreme that we're going to have millions and millions and millions and millions of acres, miles, whatever you want to call it, where somebody in Washington is going to sit there and control the majority of the state of Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just can't keep happening.
Right.
But like we talked about, the local implications are high. Property taxes, job losses, inability to expand a city, inability to have a job base. I mean, in northern Minnesota, we've seen it with the mining. We've seen it for decades now. It's like it's part of the Rust Belt. You know, it's sad. I just think it's sad.
Yeah.
So.
Oh.
Next thing you know, I mean, if Bernie Sanders wins, he'll be declaring Lake Superior off limits. For
I don't know about that, but it's definitely, a problem, and it's something we haven't really paid attention to. And I don't mean just you and me. I mean,
we as a country.
That it's gone on silently.
It's the incremental stuff, Jay. It's the being paper cut to death.
Mm-hmm.
It's the if they would have grabbed 33% of the land in 6 months, there'd have been a revolution. But when it takes 100 years, it goes through generations. That it's like raising the income tax over 100 years. It just becomes part of Americana, baby. Like Dusty Rhodes used to say, "The Americana, baby, baby, it's Americana." Dusty Rhodes. No, I'm not going to do any more wrestling, but So watch out for this, and I'll tell you what. You want to add something to it? How about all the land? And then, again, I'm not saying there shouldn't be any, but cities own parks, schools own schools, counties own. I mean, what do you think that percentage is in Minnesota? 40%, 35%?
I don't know if I'd even have a good guess.
If the state and federal governments own 24%, local governments got to own 10% or more.
Probably, yeah.
I mean,
when you think about there being so many of them too,
right? And sheriff's offices and police headquarters. Not saying there shouldn't be any. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that again, that's. And how about this? If it's public land, we own it. Yeah, we got no say in it.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like a question at the presidential debate to come up about owning public land.
Yes. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, it's the career bureaucrats at the Department of the Interior. That's who's really making the decisions around here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, the DNR here. When I'm governor, the first thing I'm going to eliminate. Then I'm going to go fishing for what I want.
Followed by the Met Council, I hope.
That's going to be a pretty close race.
Yes.
Because when I'm governor, I'm not going to appoint a Met Council.
Right.
So I don't know if it's going to die a slow death, wither on the vine, as Newt Gingrich used to say. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. But, if you don't appoint that and then somehow we got to get rid of the DNR. And I don't know if it's incremental. I don't know if it can be done all at once. But the power and stuff that they preserve is way out of whack.
Yes.
So there you have it. Land. What did they say at the UN? Land can't be treated as a simple resource or something. It has to be there for world equity or some crap like that. Some preamble. I'm trying to think of what it was. I don't remember, but
yeah, I don't remember either.
Look it up. You'll find it. Google it. Land can't be treated as an ordinary asset or something like that. I'm too tired right now to look it up. I'm just not gonna. Just Google that, okay? So, again, I mean, you drive around and you get off. Don't pee on the side of the road there. You might be doing it on state-owned land.
That might be a reason to do it. Just saying.
I'll tell you what.
Yes.
I remember there was a truck I followed one time after Green Bay won the Super Bowl with Favre.
Yes.
And it had a guy in a Vikings helmet peeing on the state of Wisconsin, and it said, "Packers still suck." So that was. Well. I remember when they lost. I was into John Elway. I was in Vegas. That was right. That was the next year when I turned 21. So.
Wow.
Good. That was about 5 years ago, I think. So good memories.
Yes, I was a John Elway fan that year.
Of course, you were around when Green Bay won the first 2 Super Bowls.
What?
Oh, yeah. You got that on beta at home. That's what I heard.
My word. Keep making me out to be Bernie Sanders Jr.
No. You were his godfather. You were. Well, at least you weren't around for that all Chicago World Series in 1906. Now that I know, but
no.
Anyhow, again, government ownership of land. I mean, it is. I'm amazed at how much land government owns. Mm-hmm. I mean, next time you're up in a plane, look out the window, and there's so much land in this country. I plan to do it, when I go to Florida.
Yeah.
Looking out, just seeing so much land. I remember one time I landed in Phoenix back in my old job, and I remember coming down, and Phoenix is just a huge city in the middle of the desert. And it's just
big old hill in the middle.
And all of a sudden, there's just this city, and I'm like, man, there's so much land around here. It's incredible.
I mean, I've driven up out of there, through like, I was staying in Scottsdale, and then you would drive out past like the university, out that way, and it's just tons of land. It turns into desert real quick.
Oh my goodness! And there's mountains if you go up by Flagstaff.
Yeah.
And you're so yeah, look outside, look out your aeroplane, and you'll see land everywhere. Jay, as always, I tag out for you to close the show.
Yeah, I've got the closing move. It's true. Whatever.
I cede the territory.
Yeah. I'm like the government coming in and swooping on your land. It's true.
Boy, I've never heard you say that before. You were like the government?
Yeah, I'm not like the government at all.
By the way, my footstep and my ADD is getting to me again.
Yeah, is that it? You're bored already?
I'm not bored. I'm not bored of the pod. I'm never bored of the podcast.
Okay,
I mean, I listen to us all the time. It really pumps our views up. Well, I listen to it constantly. No,
and judging by our numbers,
that's right. The greatest line in the movie Major League.
Yeah.
This is Bob Uecker, or whatever his name was. And it's time for some teepee talk. Remember, there's teepee talk. He goes, in case you haven't noticed, and judging by the attendance, you haven't, the Indians have been able to win a few games here and there. Nobody's listening anyway. Flawless movie.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a flawless movie and a horrible sequel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's up there with Revenge of the Nerds, too. I know we talked about that on an episode one time, but that was...
Yeah.
And it's up there with... what's the other sequel I hate? Well, 1 through 3, Star Wars.
Yeah, Rocky 5.
Although, the 1 through 3... Which one had Samuel L. Jackson in it?
I don't know. Didn't they all?
I just remember... It must have been Revenge of the Sixth.
Yeah.
That's the one I really remember him in. So that one was okay. Phantom Menace, horrendous.
Yeah.
Attack of the Clowns, barf. But sixth, Revenge. See, I consider it the sixth movie, not the third.
Right.
But, so.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well.
Straight up, I mean, that was some bad. See, I can think of more, but.
Sure.
I will while you're talking.
Okay.
Jaws the Revenge.
Yeah.
I mean, do some just. Oh, God. If they'd ever made a Mr. Nanny Part 2, that would have been pretty bad, too. Much as I love Hulk Hogan, it would have been really bad. So that had George Jefferson in it.
Did it?
Yeah. I can't think of his real name. Saved the hour.
Sherman Hemsley.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes.
It should have had Wheezy. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, don't worry about it. Just don't worry. Okay? Just don't. It's like that 2 hours I can't get back when I watch Glitter. Okay? There's just...
I can't believe you. The title alone should have given that away.
I remember it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't find the remote, or I was like half asleep. And it did have Mariah Carey in it, so that did catch my eye for a minute. And it was as horrible as advertised. I didn't think she was so bad, but, Jay, I don't want to remember it. Okay,
Yeah.
it was best friend's wedding ish. Okay, so just I know you've got that. You've had that on TiVo for 15 years.
I don't know if I've ever seen that. And wedding movies, I think, stay away from that. Anyways, we're digressing. Yeah, so we've got this problem where government seems like they need to be in control of everything, and it's getting worse. But it doesn't have to. You know, we've got a government right now, and this is happening at the state level, this is happening at the federal level, it's happening locally, where they want to be in control, whether it's through regulation or taxation, to be almost like the absolute masters over everything we do and everything we own, and that nothing we own truly is ours, and it's moving more in this socialistic direction, and there's a whole bunch of people that have signed on to this, feeling like this is where we need to head because it's fair, it's equitable. It's not fair. It's not equitable. When you have an equalization of outcomes, all you've done is strip people of their choices, strip people of their freedom. But unfortunately, we've got a group on the left that thinks this is the wave of the future. This is where we need to go. And you have a group on the right that is too busy sharpening pencils and talking about MASH reruns to care. And so I don't know what the answer is other than we need people at the local level. And I know you guys are busy just like me. You're working a ton. You're spending time with family. You might even volunteer at one or two places, you know, but
hey, you get paid for that, don't you?
For volunteering?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, well.
I think that defeats the purpose of volunteering when you get paid.
Yeah, that's why I never got into like amateur boxing. You get paid for it.
So we need people that are willing to step up.
The hell was that?
That was a sneeze. Sorry, I tried to stifle it. Didn't work.
Speaking of stifling a sneeze, you know that I once sneezed out of my ears in church?
What?
It was one of those days where my Marine father was not happy with. I was fidgeting a lot. My ADD was kicking in, and he turned to me and he just goes, "Shut up!" Even though he'd fall asleep halfway through. So maybe it was too boring. Maybe he had ADD too. But I was afraid to. I had to sneeze so bad, and I was afraid to sneeze and make it. So I went. And I shut my mouth and I pinched my nose, and the sneeze went right out my ears, and it hurt. If I got waffled out back with a tire iron, it would not have hurt as bad as this. I was just, it would hurt so bad. Anyhow, nice sneeze, by the way. That was just a beauty.
Yeah, that was amazing. We're doing a great job tonight. All right.
Well, so, you're having trouble staying on task over there.
All right, so here's where we're at. We've got a country that is going off the rails, and we've got a bunch of us that we enjoy life. We want to get the most out of life, but we're at a period in our history where we need to stand up and do something, and we need just a few good people to stand up and get involved and to get on advisory commissions, to run for city council, to run for school board, to run for county commissions. And if that's you, if that strikes a chord with you, that you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, we want to help you. And you can get a hold of us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. And we will be more than happy to walk you through and let you know what you're in for. And we do a whole bunch of Maybe we should do a podcast sometime on what it is we do, actually. I know our first podcast, we talked about who we are, but that's, I think, even changed over the course of 4 years a little bit.
I'd rather do Boss Hog and Roscoe. That's what I'd rather do.
Is that what we're going to do? We're here to help you guys, believe it or not, despite all the jokes, despite all of that. We are here to make
Roscoe,
change.
you catch them Duke boys yet? No, I'm kidding. I won't.
We're here to change the face of local politics, and by changing local politics, change state politics, maybe someday federal politics as well. Because as you guys get involved and you see the need. There's some of you that are going to go through local and state and federal, and you're going to be able to make those changes because you're good people. And that's what we need, are good people. We're sick and tired of people that want to make politics about them, what they can get out of it, the power they can accumulate, the money, the greed. We need people of character. And so get a hold of us.
And by the way, do not watch Revenge of the Nerds 2.
Okay. Duly noted.
That's where you should volunteer. If you're going to choose between those two, no, I'm kidding.
My word.
Just had to get a movie reference, because, I don't watch too many of them. But the ones I watch, I know a lot about.
Oh, boy.
Can't watch. Once again, it's my ADD, Jay.
Yeah.
Remember, it's an illness, not my fault.
Well, that's what they would lead us to believe, yes.
It's those chemicals. My hematobin level is crossed with my, into my frontal cortex, and that's the problem. Nothing I can do about it.
Nothing at all.
Nope.
Nothing at all.
It's not my fault.
Yeah, that's a bunch of hooey. All right. So, anyways, whatever this was, take it away, disseminate it over the next week. We'll be back with another podcast. And this is important stuff. And we talk about stuff you're not going to hear on other podcasts. And we try to make it interesting for you. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you did, share it with somebody.
And if you're still listening, that means you have.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Nobody fast forwards this show. There are no commercials.
No.
There's no cliffhangers either.
No.
We wrap it up at the end.
That's it. And on that note, we love you, Minnesota. Now it's your turn to get to work.